Okay, welcome everyone. Rabbi Moully I actually got to know him because he came out to us here and did a wonderful art show. And as he can tell you, he was on, is on Shlichus actually for 10 years. And then his art was, he was doing his art, and he realized that his art is a shlichus. So he just moved full time into that. He travels all over the world to shluchim and other Jewish communities, and spreads chassidus to people that normally can't be reached other than through art. And he has a lot of innovative and creative ideas. And when he was here, I said to him, is there something connected to Mashiach that maybe you can do? Because a lot of his art is, as he'll explain a little more, is called interactive. Some of his art is interactive performance art, where the olam gets involved. Each person that's there does something. And we know when you do something, when you experience something yourself, it has a larger impact on you. So I said, what about Mashiach? He said, yeah, I have this idea about Mashiach. And he gave me this amazing idea, which could be done in individual Chabad houses or individual schools, or it could also be done, on a global level. But I'll let him explain. He could talk a little bit more about himself, about what he does, and launch into his idea, which is an amazing, I think, an amazing idea, which will sort of invigorate whoever's involved, makes them feel like and see how their actions are actually bringing Mashiach. But I'll let Rabbi Moully dive in and go for it.
Shalom Aleichem, esteemed rabbis, thank you. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Before I get started, can I share my screen? Because I have a few things here to show you.
You can.
All right, automatically, it'll share?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we'll get to that in a second. Shalom Aleichem. So my name is Rabbi Yitzchok Moully, and Baruch Hashem, I have a wonderful, history of my family history, Balei Tshuva, coming to the Rebbe, spending time by the Rebbe as a child, continuing on and, thinking that the ultimate that I could contribute to the world and what the Rebbe had in mind is to be a shliach. And
do you mind saying quickly the story with your mother, how the Rebbe said this?
Well, the story is that I was born in Darwin, Australia, which is the capital of nowhere. Mamish, the middle of nowhere. Till today, there's still no Chabad center there. They send Bachram there on Pesach. That's the extent of the Jewish community till today. But my grandfather wasn't well. Originally, they're from Egypt. We came down to Melbourne. My grandfather was in hospital. My mother went to shul to daven for her father, and she met a Chabad rabbi. You know how influential they can be. And shortly thereafter, I was enrolled in Jewish day school in the yeshiva school in Melbourne, and that was the day my grandfather passed away. And the thought was that we couldn't go back to the outback. Where could we be? We could have a love of nature together with Yiddishkeit. We thought it was a kibbutz in Eretz Yisrael. So we gathered, we prepared papers, money, whatever it is, and we went, so for some reason, via Los Angeles, via New York, on our way to Eretz Yisrael. This was Elul 1985. We showed up in New York. We didn't know anyone, people who knew people. We ended up in Crown Heights for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, 1985. And while we're there, people said, write a letter to the Rebbe, get a bracha for your continued journey. So my mother did. And the Rebbe said, stay here for the time being and accomplish what you're here to accomplish. So we ended up staying in Crown Heights, just up the road from Rabbi Mendy Rubenfeld, for 4.5 years. And the Giluyim that I got as a child, Mama, incredible Giluyim. And after 4.5 years, circumstance changed. We wrote back to the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, it's time to go home. So we went home, and I was told, what did Rebbe want? 4.5 years, so many people came through, Bracha Vatzlach, Aska Otzi, and Viter. They have a memory, they have $1. What did Rebbe want from me? So I thought it's to be a shliach. So, from there, we continued in the yeshiva system. I got married and ended up on shlichus in Basking Ridge, New Jersey. And on the side, I was dabbling with art. My parents are hippies, creative, whatever, photography, silkscreen, this, that, and the other, until I realized I couldn't do both. I couldn't do everything. I couldn't do both the shlichus and the art. I thought, one is way more important than the other. And I kind of know which one is which. But before I did anything drastic, I spoke to my mashpia, said, maybe I should stop painting. It's getting in the way of the shlichus. So he said the question isn't should you paint or not. The question is how do you take the gifts the Eibishter gave you and impact the world in a meaningful way. So long story short, I'm no longer a shliach in Basking Ridge. I'm now in Hillside, New Jersey, but I continue my shlichus through my art. And I believe full circle is this is what the Rebbe saw in me, that it wasn't just the just is an understatement, but not just another youth rabbi somewhere, but that I'm taking the gifts that the Eibishter gave me and to impact the world in a meaningful way through my art. And my art continues to evolve. This past Hanukkah, I made an interactive menorah, a menorah where you reach up and you touch the handles and the light turns on, that we are the lights of the menorah. But I want to share this idea of something related to Beis HaMikdash, so or to Mashiach and specifically Beis HaMikdash. So if I can share, am I sharing my screen? How do I do this? Let me...
on the bottom, it should say share.
Share screen. Share.
It worked.
All right, it worked. So, so in Yeshiva College, as a child, I don't know, I was 5, 6 years old, but I remember, and throughout my youth, and I'm sure all of you had similar experiences, the idea of bringing a mitzvah note, and together we'll build a wall of the Beis HaMikdash, build the whole Beis HaMikdash, a picture of the Beis HaMikdash, that every there's a song, every mitzvah that we do, builds another brick in the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. This idea that our actions count. And there's a Farbrengen for Rabbi Yossi Paltiel that had a huge impact on my work, that every mitzvah, mamish, every mitzvah that we do has an impact. And his Farbrengen, you can look it up, it's on yeshiva.net. You look up Yud Alef Nissen, as a Farbrengen from Rabbi Yossi Paltiel, talking about the Rebbe's 10 Mitzvayim, the timeline of the Mitzvayim, and the impact, the critical mass of Yidden doing a new mitzvah, had this tremendous impact on the world vis-a-vis Shleimas Haaretz and so on. And this idea that every individual mitzvah we do has an impact really struck me and sits with me, and I contemplated from different angles. And so here is a model of the Beis HaMikdash. It's the Herodian version, you can see. And another way, if I look at it from, let me get this thing out of the way. So this is a program called Tinkercad. You can just see this is the model. Can you all see? I'm manipulating, moving in the model. It's a reasonable amount of detail. Someone created this model. And my thought is that if we work with, say, an individual school or in a town or globally, that there are these buttons. So over here, you can see Amazon buttons. They're called if this, then that button. That when you press a button, you program it for something to happen. And there are different options. I'm sure there are cheaper ones, but there's if this, then that button. That if you push a button, you program it for something to happen. So what's my idea? My idea is that we set up these buttons, one in each classroom, one in each shul, one in whoever the client is, or whoever chooses to work with us on this. And every time someone presses a button, they essentially trigger a 3D printer to print a little bit of the Beis HaMikdash. So this is a model of the Beis HaMikdash. Is everyone here familiar with 3D printing?
Give us a quick overview. Yeah.
A quick overview. 3D printing is that it prints in 3 dimensions. It prints not just on a flat sheet of paper, but it can print spatial awareness. There's a lot of different things that can be printed. Let me go here that I can see all the wonderful people I'm talking to. But that you can print that is that's a pre-existing file that we can take, and we could print the 3-dimensional Beis HaMikdash. We can choose depending on the size of the printer, depending on what we're interested. It could be printed, the whole thing can be printed in one piece. And so the idea for me is that kids there's a direct cause and effect, that they push the button, something happens. There are some technical, details that need to be dealt with, how to go about it, because really a 3D print, once you start printing, you don't want to stop. It needs to be done all in one print rather than starting, stop, and start and stop. So there's ways of either taking the model and breaking it down into pieces, and each class prints their own. But whatever it is, basically, the basic idea is that you do a mitzvah, a child does a mitzvah in a school, they push a button. They push a button, maybe it creates a counter. And once we have 100 mitzvahs, 1,000 mitzvahs to the school, then it triggers the printer to start printing, and it prints either the whole piece in one, or again, we do it in sections. Every 100 mitzvahs equal one part of the thing. It would print a particular wall, and then we could take it and put the whole Beis HaMikdash together. But really, the idea is that children in school print the Beis HaMikdash based on the mitzvahs they do. And how they quantify the mitzvahs is up to them in the school. There's Tzivos Hashem and their, the charts and the sheets and the app and all that. There's different ways to quantify, but bottom line is that they decide they're going to do a mitzvah. They push a button. That pushes them actually pushing that button. To me, is the exciting is. It's not just in theory. They're physically pushing a button. They're causing a counter to change, like the fundraising counters. Once we hit a critical mass, then it triggers the 3D printer. And ideally, we put the 3D printer in their school so that they can come and they can see the progress of what they're doing. And by the end of the period, whatever the period is, a week, a month, whatever it is, again, there's logistics, there's technical things. They have now a physical 3D printed replica of the Beis HaMikdash that they created themselves through the mitzvahs that they did.
So a comment on that.
Please.
Perhaps you could have an idea of in front of that 3D printer. Each time they do a mitzvah, a brick is actually built on screen. When you hit a critical mass, then it actually prints it. So they can actually see an image of it being built bit by bit.
Yeah. I absolutely. Another version is to actually print individual bricks. That gets a little bit more complicated. I was talking to, what's his name? I'm going blank on his name. He's down in Florida. He builds Beis HaMikdash out of Lego. See, he was talking about the idea of printing bricks that would then be put together to actually build the Beis HaMikdash. I'm not quite sure if I like that or not. I think maybe sections, but yeah, definitely they should see a reaction to their mitzvah. They push that button, something happens, something real actually happens that builds towards building this Beis HaMikdash. Kasowitz, yes, thank you. So in terms of the model, this particular model is a Herodian model of the second Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Kasowitz works with the Rambam based on the first Beis HaMikdash.
I have to adjust.
Sorry?
Yikes.
No, that wasn't intentional.
Okay. So it's a question of which model of the Beis HaMikdash we go with. The Herodian model is the most, I would say, visually appealing. Perhaps it's the most it's the one that the image that is used, thrown around the most, or used the most. But it's a question of choosing a model and going with it. And that could be broken down to different walls, different columns, different parts, so that each individual part is a lot more doable. Number one, you could build a bigger model out of a smaller printer, because you'd print each part on its own, and then would have a model somewhere, with a big lucite box on top, and once a week, everything that's printed would come, and the class would talk about how, the school would talk about where it belongs, where this particular piece belongs. Maybe they could have a floor plan, like a blueprint of the Beis HaMikdash, and they know where to put in different pieces of the Beis HaMikdash. The bottom line is that the kids are actively involved in building their own Beis HaMikdash that comes about through their mitzvahs.
So beautiful.
And how big is it possible? I know they do 3D. I saw they do 3D printed homes now. It's a new thing when they actually do a home that's 3D printed. You see there's a machine standing there and it's literally printing a house. How big could we do like a bunch of schools together and do like a huge model and it gets printed? Like how big can it go?
It can go very big. I mean, they've printed boats.
Boats.
I mean, the way we do is like out of plastic. It gets expensive. It does. The bigger the printer, like a smaller like school printer would be $1,000, $2,000 for a printer. They come cheaper, but like you want a printer that doesn't. There's a lot of, there can be hiccups. So you want to find like a school that would have someone on site that knows a little bit about 3D printing. But for a few $1,000s, you can get a relatively basic printer. Go up from there, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. You can get a printer that'll print, something that you could stand inside, not full size, but something that's big. But I mean, it's a question of budget. But
the question is, but what would happen? Let's say Chabad schools around the world. This is like when you're doing small individual schools, you can do small models, and this is like fantastic. Imagine, but if you do all the I don't know, all the base rifkas and there you have, can something like this be rented as opposed to having to be bought the 3D printer? It's rented for this project. They do it for a couple of months, and it's like all comes together, and it literally builds a supersized Beis Hamikdash. That's the idea that is being done by like many schools together, because this is really wild stuff.
Absolutely, definitely. I always say yes, it can be done. Now let's work out the details.
Yeah. But definitely starting with small ones is incredible.
I mean, a lot of libraries and children's museums have 3D printers, and if a shliach or Chabad house or even a Hebrew school wants to team up with them, I don't think they would mind doing a project together. That's one idea. Another thing is, Yitzchok,
the huge museum. Wait, the Crown Heights Museum could somehow maybe be involved with something like this.
Yeah, maybe. I was thinking, when you start the count, you should start the count at a very high number, and it should count all the mitzvahs that they've ever done in their life. So it could start like they've already, like it's 10 million for the whole school. They've all done these mitzvahs, and they just need a few more, instead of starting at 0. Yeah.
So I'll share with you another idea that could work, that could be built into this, because this idea is that you put buttons in, these the if this then that button, it clicks, a button that clicks. Another thought I had, any of you esteemed rabbis are familiar with something called Pokemon Go? There was a craze. It was a craze
Not familiar,
5 years ago, 6 years
it.
ago.
Yeah.
So he was a mishigas, but to explain the mishigas is that through people's phones, they could see, opening up the app, you could see in the physical space something that Bagashmis didn't exist, but it existed through the interface of the phone. To me, that was the most powerful mashal of ruchnius that we have in the physical world, because it's here, you can see it. With the naked eye, you can't see it. With the right lens, you can't see it. The ruchnius is something that's very much here. We know it's here. You can't see it with the naked eye, but with the right tools, you can see it. So my thought is to build an app. So we have taken example Tefillin for Yitzi. All right. So there's the ongoing project of Tefillin for Yitzi. The last time I remember, they were trying to get 60,000 Tefillin for Yitzi. Maybe I'm outdated. How do we quantify that? Where do we do it? Where's the chart? Where's the thing? It's incredible, but it's just like, it's in theory the 60,000. The thought is to build an app that is you put on tefillin for someone, with someone, or you do a mitzvah yourself. You open up the app and you take an icon of the mitzvah you did. Say tzedakah. You did tzedakah here in this space. So you open up the app and you take an icon of a tzedakah pushka and you put it down on the table in front of you. So you have what? You have who is yourself. You sign up and you get a username and so on. What is tefillin? When is time stamped for right now? Where is geotagged around the world? And why is, say, tefillin for Yitzi? You're doing it towards a particular pu'ula. Again, I remember as a kid in camp, In Australia, we had these bachrim from America, from around the world, and we're going on a hike in Mamish in the middle of nowhere. And they're saying, never in the history of the world has any yid has stepped on this particular space. We have to stop. You have to say 12 psukim. We have to, and we'll be, mavarin netzutzim in this particular spot. So imagine a camp that davens mincha on a hike somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and they drop an icon. They drop a mincha icon, who, what, when, where, why, in that particular space. A week later, another camp comes and they're in that space, and they can open the app and they can look and they can see, oh, right over there, these guys daven mincha. Oh, come, let's daven in the same spot. And it becomes quantifiable. Now big data, now you can track tefillin for Yitzi. You can see, look, around the world in the last 24 hours, there was 500 tefillin for Yitzi. And look, there was 85 in LA, and there was 73 in New York. And look, in Helsinki, someone put on tefillin for Yitzi. Oh my God, I can't believe, how did he know that it's so incredible. And you're tracking mitzvahs in real time. And then, so that could be the precursor to a global Beis HaMikdash, that anyone around the world is adding a mitzvah, and as they add a mitzvah, instead of pressing a button, they go into the app, they choose the mitzvah that they want, and they put it in that space, and they create, it gets tracked as a mitzvah. So this is a lot harder to pull off. An app like this will take a lot of programming and so on, and a budget. And Baruch Hashem, I'm blessed with ideas. More than I'm blessed with budgets, and this is what the Eibishter gives me, so I'm sure it's a good thing. But these are two ways of and the second one, it can become the charity of mitzvahs, that different groups, and also really, I was talking to someone, you could sell, that someone sponsors for 24 hours, all mitzvahs done, ala ilui nishmas, someone. Or you could set up a charity campaign that, Rahman al-Itzlan, someone needs, Tillim said, someone needs mitzvahs, that for the next 24 hours, all the mitzvahs are being done in schus of that a particular person should have refuah shalema, so that there is the potential of, monetizing it to some degree, or at least that it covers its own costs. But these are two concepts and two ideas of tracking and quantifying mitzvahs for the sake of bringing Mashiach.
These are such unbelievable ideas. The problem is that it's giving the Eibishter an excuse to wait for these. I'm just only fair. It's only fair. It's like, wow, this is like a whole new level. I guess it's
Very recently, the C kids from Crown Heights, the C kids for the Hebrew school curriculums, they did this VR, Beis HaMikdash VR, and it was really amazing because the kids got to go back in time and walk into the Beis HaMikdash and see how things work. But that's past tense, it's all the past, and this has an element of making it alive and making it real for Mashiach.
But the concept of people being able to see the lasting continuity of a mitzvah as it's floating in the universe is wild stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. It's like the metaverse.
It's mitzvahs in the metaverse.
No, but imagine how excited young kids would get about this. This is like, it's.
You can turn it into a game. I mean, you turn it into tracking mitzvahs, finding mitzvahs, sharing mitzvahs. There's many applications. I mean, if I'm going to indulge myself here for a moment. One way of the uvachein of all the mitzvahs from around the world is the Beis HaMikdash. Another uvachein that this idea that I had originally was this overflowing cup. So you may have seen I've done one 8-foot cup in Chabad of East Hamptons, that each person comes up and they hold a cup of paint and they say, I am grateful for, and they finish the sentence, something they're grateful for in life, and they pour over the top. But the idea with the mitzvahs is that to do this in a museum somewhere, and to do, again, an 8-foot cup or bigger, and above the cup would be a bucket, and above the bucket would be like an IV drip machine. And every time a mitzvah happens around the world, one drip goes into the bucket. So mamish, every mitzvah is a drip in the bucket. And what's one drip in the bucket? It's just one drip in a big bucket. But once the bucket fills with all the drips and we do like ink that doesn't dry so fast, it automatically causes the bucket to overflow over the cup. So it overflows over the side of the cup. And then we get another bucket with another color.
Zechariah did that already. Menoida Zav Kula, and he had Vagula al Roisha, and there were two things that were automatically crushing the olives. That's the Rani Vasimchi Haftarah. He mamish saw this mechanical Menoida in operation with the things crushing, and it was Zed
Continuing.
Did we meet we met at the Kinnis HaShluchim, I think. We had a discussion.
Yeah.
Let
Let me finish. Let me just finish because the idea is to do this in a round room where the map of the world is made up of LED lights. And that anytime in real time that a mitzvah happens, a light flashes in that part of the world. And then the last thing is that at the foot of this would be like an EKG machine. You see it, when someone's when our wives are giving birth or whatever it is, that the checking, keeping the heart rate. The EKG would change based on the amount of mitzvahs that happen in the world. That the greater the mitzvahs, the greater the sway of the pendulum. And I call it Am Yisrael Chai, that we're alive by the mitzvahs that we do. So this is actually a rendering. That's not a real one. Let me find a real one to share with you. The one that I actually did. I'll share my screen in a moment. So these are some concepts. These are some of the things that keep me up at night of how to take, chassidus that I learned in yeshiva, the ideas that we have, and
bring it into Olam
share them with the
Asiyah,
world.
Gashmi.
Yep.
Quick story about you.
I can
You were
see this
saying
being-
about Pokemon a couple of years ago, after the shooting in Poway, they happened to have one of those spots, a Pokemon spot where people went to get points. It was right in front of Chabad Poway, and the guards were going crazy because people from all over were pulling up in their cars, and they're standing around doing nothing. No one knows what they're doing there because you can't see what they're doing. There's nothing physical there, and they contacted the Pokemon game and said, move that point away from Chabad Poway.
Are you kidding?
Ruben,
Here,
what were
I'm
you
gonna
gonna say?
I'm sharing. This is the video. Hopefully you can see. Sorry, turn off the sound. It's a time lapse. Hope you can see it clearly over Zoom of people coming and sharing and pouring paint. So each person came up and they shared, Baruch Hashem, I'm grateful for, and they poured over the top, and the finished piece is on display, in front of the Chabad house for everyone to see as a celebration of their collective blessings.
So nice.
That is crazy.
Tell me it wasn't empty, the cup.
No, life is already good. Life is already amazing. So the cup is full, and now it's about overflowing our blessings over the top. So that's
Beautiful.
Even connected to Mashiach, people can say, while they're pouring. I was thinking about the Beis HaMikdashes. When the models are done, we could do I actually did. I got a dreidel from Rabbi Moully for Hanukkah. He did the same thing with that cup, but it's actually a dreidel, 3D printed dreidel. And we did it in the park, and people came over, and Lahavdil, a lot of Goyim also. They said what they want to thank God for. And I was thinking maybe the Beis HaMikdash, when it's done, could also be painted. I don't know, that could be tied into it somehow.
Maybe we can make up korbanos.
That's the money.
A lot of red, yeah.
I would think if I'm just on the money end, people Nebuch that have lost a child, or people that have Yechilis that have lost a child and would want, this is like, what can you give in a way that's like to memorize a child? that passed away young. Something like this is like so. It's such nechama, it's such future, it's bringing Mashiach. It's very powerful. So I'm saying there must be people that would pounce on something like this to fund something like this in a big way.
On an individual level, let's say you package it to a school, if we send them a printer with the materials, with the instructions or whatever it is, I mean, how much would it cost to send it out to individual schools, Chabad houses, and so on and so forth, like on a starting level?
I haven't priced it all out, but it would be a few $1,000s. It would be at least $5,000. There's a fair amount of technical details that need to be worked out beforehand. So to have a team working on that, getting that all ready, there would be definitely some costs involved. But I would think somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 is what I'm thinking. If we get enough orders to bring down the cost. But I think we'd want a printer that's not going to break on us and create lots of problems. I think the printer alone would be, $2,000-3,000. So it could be that we do one, and then when they're finished, they send the printer on to the next school. So we only use one printer. We don't need multiple printers, and we divide the cost of the printer by everyone who uses it.
Or we rent. I forgot. Rabbi Wolf mentioned about maybe renting a printer. I don't know.
So there are services that will print for you, but part of my thought, which I didn't mention, is to have a webcam on the printer so that you can see, you can log in from anywhere and see, Beis HaMikdash in print, building the Beis HaMikdash in action, and to be able to log in and to see it and to watch it. I don't think we would be able to get that. And I think the fact that it's built in front of the kids, to put it on a table with a cover around it, in the lobby of the school, in a classroom, in a place where the kids can look and see progress, to me is a lot more powerful than getting something in the mail. That some other it's done somewhere else, and here it is. Because then it can be made in China and finished. It comes, it's not.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's actually apropos for this week. I think that Rebbe set to build the Beis HaMikdash. No, it spoke about building the Beis HaMikdash.
Then you can dress the Kahanim. This one way creative. You get them all dressed up. I'm saying you have more to build with this. You have thousands of Kahanim you need. You're building you're getting them the begodim. You're getting.
It's incredible what can be done with a 3D printer. Absolutely.
Can we build a real thing like this?
I don't know.
Why doing the pretend one? Maybe we can get the real thing.
It's physically possible based on what they're doing.
You're not a gold.
Maybe this is the meaning that it's going to be built min hashamayim and down here, because it's being used like forces that are not in Uretz. It's shamayim they get koiches, meaning it's not gashmis the gishabe gashmis. The whole online situation that's being transmitted here, the digital whatever information,
the files in the cloud,
and it's happening the gashmis too. So here you got this combination. It's just an interesting thought.
Likewise, if there is, if there's real interest, unfortunately, I'm a borderline starving artist, depending on the day. So I would love to take this. Sorry.
You're a real artist.
I'm a real artist.
And a shliach.
And a shliach. I know, I'm starving on both ends.
And it could be both the Ethiopian Jew, black and schwarz and Aid.
So if there's real interest to move this forward, and there's a possibility of some way to get at least some seed funding for it, I would love to to move forward and to try to resolve some of these technical issues and create something that, is ready to go.
Mhm.
Maybe we can
Okay,
put the
yeah.
money.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's somebody that's willing to give money towards different Mashiach projects. And I think somebody's putting together some sort of a proposal for them. Maybe if you write something up, they can add that to the different proposals.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, there has to be a follow-up on this. This is too good to let just be another presentation. This one is getting to me.
Baruch Hashem. Good. Good.
no, it's
Sure.
amazing. And it could be promoted in not only in Chabad schools, it could be promoted everywhere.
No, Torah Masorah can get excited about this.
Yeah.
This is big.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say even
We don't want to give
beyond
it
the
to them before. Well,
even beyond the frum world,
For sure.
a good deed, you rebrand a mitzvah as a good deed, bringing the idea of building.
and building a better world, they can be building something like that in that sense.
I think you might want to go
Agreed.
to those foundations that found special educational projects, unusual kinds of educational tools and approaches.
Yeah, but you'll need seed money even to be able to get a good grant writer to be able to write it and to do this stuff. He needs a little basics to even to move it to that place. But that's for sure a direction to go to.
A basic write-up I can put together.
Uh-huh.
I have someone helps me with writing, so it's not a grant, but he could describe kind of what I shared here. He would hopefully be able to help me put it into writing.
Yeah,
And
Rabbi
then-
Estrin gets stuck with all the. I'm obligatory volunteering him. Like
Not a
in
problem.
Vietnam.
I'm ready to work with you.
Uh-huh.
All right, so let's set up a time. Let's talk. I mean, you heard my whole spiel now.
Yeah.
If that's enough to work with, great. If not, I'll gladly. We'll set a time to talk.
What I'll
Okay.
do is, probably you just post your email and I can come up with some questions and we can start from there. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you very, very much. This was amazing. Great idea. Take it to the next step, Mirza Hashem.
Okay. Well, Yashikar, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share, and thank you for sharing in my excitement. And let's make this happen.
Amen. Amen. Have the real thing.
Rabbi Estrin, if I could label, I did not see any email. I'm sorry. You're mute. Can't hear. You're
Yeah,
muted.
you see.
I sent it in the chat.
In the chat?
Yeah, WhatsApp.
In WhatsApp.